When I think about change, I've been to the edge of the cliff, I've jumped, and I've been pushed. And let me tell you, you're okay. It is not as bad as you would think it was. And I think there's that fear, that anxiety up to that moment of change.
When trying to understand the impact of digital innovation on how we work, communicate, and share ideas, few industries come to mind as readily as the newspaper business. Newspapers went from a business of printing money through display and classified ad sales to becoming just another fish hunting for food in an expansive digital ocean. Now, a lot has been written and said about the decline of newspapers, so this episode of Career Essentials isn't going to wade into those choppy waters. Rather, we'll focus on lessons we can take from being forced to pivot from a once stable industry to something else. We know the future of jobs is changing, and that, like newspapers, many industries will need to come to terms with their own digital reckoning. I'm Brian Allery. I'm a writer and editor for TechLifeToday.ca and host of this episode. Today, I'm joined by NAIT marketing alumnus Rob Lollisher. Rob is no stranger to career pivots during his 27-year, sometimes eclectic career. He's worked in newspapers and ad sales, as a community newspaper publisher and owner, and as an executive with Postmedia's digital content arm. He left the industry completely for a brief stint in real estate and also once ran an Edmonton area casino. He's been a concert promoter, an active community volunteer, and is co-host of Top Cheddar, a hockey podcast with Cam Moon, a former teammate with the Saskatoon Blades of the WHL. Most recently, Rob has taken on the role of entrepreneur as principal of Road 55, a digital content production company. Well, Rob, thank you for joining me on the Career Essentials podcast.
Thanks for having me on.
We both worked in newspapers in St. Albert, longtime competitors, I at the St. Albert Gazette and you at the St. City News and later the St. Albert Leader. But I think this is the first time that we've actually had a conversation.
No, I don't think we have either. So I'm glad that's out of the way finally.
So why don't we start out and take a ride in the Wayback Machine and talk about your early days in the industry. Even before you finished your program at NAIT, you joined the Edmonton Sun as an assistant in the ad sales department. What kind of work did that involve in those early days?
So it was a little, I'll say, manual as to how the newspaper was put together. It was still cut and paste, and the big cameras would shoot the flats of each individual page, and if you wanted to show a proof to a client, you literally got in a car and drove halfway across town to show them their little $100 ad that had to run the next day and get approval. So there was a lot of work involved with just the flow of ads coming in. Not much was digital at that point. And honestly, I'm thankful that I was there at that time just as like kind of the old way was being phased out into the digital side of the business. But we literally had no computers in the ad department and, the old fax machine.
What was it that you enjoyed about the newspaper industry at that time?
I think through my career, it started at the Sun with a bit of a number two mentality. We were the little paper that could and expect nothing. I've used the line for a long time since then that no one calls us. You got to go out and get it. And starting at the Sun just drilled that into me that we had to go get every dollar that we earned. My very first role at the Sun and as a senior sales rep was, if you can believe it, they called me the Journal exclusive list rep. They handed me a list of about 100 advertisers who hadn't spent a nickel in the Sun, and they all were in the Journal, and it was just go get them. So a bit of that scrappiness to go get it without expecting anything, and I love in the business of media, the creative business, that if I can't win you over today, there's always an opportunity a week later, a month later, year later, could come back with new ideas, a different approach.
I love the idea, the scrappiness of it and having a list of Journal clients that you have to go steal. How much work was involved in turning all those no's into one yes?
Well, going into it, that the first yes is the first yes for the paper too, right? So you truly had nowhere to go but up. So, there was some where I won them over with just, I'm this fresh grad out of NAIT, give me a chance. And won them over that way, and then others through some just creative approaches. I would do a lot of that with the nose to the grindstone of making calls each day. To this day, my kids know this rule I have. I call it my personal 5x5. It's a little theme out of my company, Road 55, where it was a promise I made to myself. I'm the boss. I don't have to. I could not show up today, and no one's going to say anything. But I made a commitment to myself to do 5 things every day, 5 days a week to grow the business. Doesn't sound like much. Many weeks though, I still fail. But when I do it, I know that I've done 25 things to actively try and grow the business. And I'm a bit of a believer in math and probability, and that, you do that, I can control that. I can't control what comes out the other end. And that's too many focus on that end of it. And I felt I'm gonna worry about and focus on the things that I can control.
Do you have an example of some of those 5x5s, things that you would do?
This podcast honestly could be considered as something that I know it'll be out there in some capacity. People might hear of me in Road 55 for the first time. So this is an activity that would count for that. Be a coffee meeting, Zoom meeting, more Zoom meetings these days. Working LinkedIn, just various ways that to put some lines in the water, respecting the process, right? I don't contact anyone with the belief that, hey, it's Rob, and tomorrow we're doing business. I know it's pure relationship building, and it starts with a friendly hello.
Rob spent 6 years at the Edmonton and St before dabbling briefly in real estate, which he says just wasn't for him. In 2003, he was lured back to newspapers and the opportunity to run the St. City News, a weekly newspaper in his hometown of St. Albert. The paper had been on death's doorstep and had the tough task of taking on a larger crosstown rival in the more established St. Albert Gazette. That's where our paths first crossed when I was a reporter and later an editor at the Gazette. Working at another scrappy number 2 appealed to LeLacheur's competitive streak.
It was a couple weeks from death's doorstep. They were literally going to shut it down, had nowhere to go but up. So I became publisher of that newspaper, and that was so much fun. Doing that.
St. City News would eventually fold 3 years later, and LeLacheur left the industry completely to run Apex Casino in St. Albert as general manager. After overseeing the casino through a major renovation and rebrand, he again felt the lure of newspapers. So he did something that was a bit unexpected, even for the industry in 2011. He started his own newspaper, the St. Albert Leader. With a small 3-person team set up in a local business incubator, he once again accepted his role as a scrappy competitor. You made the decision to start your own newspaper at a time when there were still signs that the newspaper industry might not be in the best shape or the best bet. What made you feel confident that this was the right thing to do?
Without a doubt, there was an element of change was happening, but I sound a little stupid saying it now, but maybe it wasn't as evident to me at that point that it was going to be as rapid. I had hopes and beliefs of taking on additional products as well, that we could monetize the relationships with the advertisers. That didn't quite come to fruition the way I had hoped originally. And I joke with many, I was just the dumbest guy in the room who raised my hand, and we moved into the office. We went into the NABI, the business incubator. I had 3 people on my team, and in 2 weeks we were on the street with a 24-page paper, 20,000 copies, and we hit every week thereafter.
You had a front row seat for some really good years for the newspaper industry, but you were also there for the start of the decline of the old business model. When did you start to realize that this was a problem that wasn't going to go away? And in fact, today still hasn't been resolved.
It was like fall 2014, 2015, in around there. And all of a sudden had some really major advertisers pull out because Google AdWords was really hitting the market then. And, that spring of 2015, I just really looked at it and say, okay, I can fight this for another couple years. We'll still be here a couple years from now. But if I'm lucky, I'll be standing in the exact same spot. And what's been difficult for the transition from traditional print advertising to digital for all the newspapers has been, all of a sudden you're selling something that everyone and their dog is selling. Every media company out there, the Yellow Pages, Post Media, Bell Media, Rogers, the Gazette, the list goes on and on. All of a sudden, the business model was totally broken on that front. And people, it's funny, people would say, oh, the readers, they just went away. And I'd be like, no, I'll stop you right there. Newspapers have never had more readers in the history of their products, like not even close. It's the revenue that's gone. The ads are gone. The readers are not gone. Now, they're on different platforms. They're on mobile. They're on a tablet. They're on a computer. They're in print. But altogether, the numbers are huge, but they can't be monetized the way they were. So I made a real, super tough decision because to your earlier point, I was a pretty involved community guy. Everyone in town knows I own the paper. And then you publish that last edition with your words saying, this is it. There's a strong element of failure that you couldn't do it. No matter how much people realized the challenges of the industry, it was a failure with a big F on it. And I wore it.
LeLacheur took the leader's failure hard. In fact, he called the period of time afterward his summer of discontent. A husband and father of 4 young children, he was forced to figure out what came next. He returned to his Metro newspaper roots, but this time after the merger of the Edmonton and St and Edmonton Journal as manager of content solutions for the journal's parent company, Post Media Network. Like other industries disrupted by technology, Post Media was finding its way in a growing digital landscape.
There was a day, Brian, where you could walk in and sell them one thing in one edition, and 50% of the community would see that one thing. The growing pains are every week is a new platform, is a new direction that you can go. And not only for yourself and your team, your own company, but like for the clients too. It trying to organize that chaos a bit. There's just so many options of how to stand out. In some respects, it's probably harder to stand out digitally than it ever was in some of the traditional approaches. So there's an element of education. It didn't matter what we were doing, we were right sizing to whatever that right size was publicly. And I said that to a lot of people. I'm like, if we were a restaurant, we'd be closed for renovations right now. You wouldn't see any of this. You would wait for the grand new opening and here's the new product. We didn't have that luxury. Every day we have to put the paper out, and every day we're trying to manage that change as we go along.
Eventually, LeLacheur saw an opportunity to use his experiences and skills from newspapers and digital content and started his own company, Road 55. A large chunk of his career was spent navigating unknowns from an industry in flux. But this time, he wasn't afraid of change.
I'm an old hockey player. I'd been punched out before, and what do? You get up and you eye them up, and I'll get you the next shift. And there's a bit of my competitive nature. I've said to friends that when I think about change, I say, look, I've been to the edge of the cliff, I've jumped, and I've been pushed. And let me tell you, you're okay. It is not as bad as you would think it was. And I think there's that fear, that anxiety up to that moment of change. I know that fear for a lot of people prior to that moment scares the heck out of so many folks and doesn't scare me at all anymore. Like I've had well-paying jobs that I left and to terrible earning job, but it's kind of, we still figured out a way to do it and to get by. But with a real focus on, I have one life. I want to enjoy doing what we're doing and have fun showing up every day and feel my work matters.
You mentioned a few times about, how competitive you are, how a lot of that comes from your hockey playing days, but also your newspaper experience where you very much focused on being a competitor. And then you find yourself in this big digital world where suddenly you don't have the same kind of competitor in your sights. And essentially you're competing with what I would imagine would be a lot of different companies.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, there's every kid in the basement with a video camera is a potential competitor. As we go along, I don't think it'll ever be as black and white as my past has been with the Gazette or with the Sun and the Journal. Just so identified that there's the opponent. And I laugh. I use it. I think I was in a meeting yesterday. I said to them, "Look, I suffer from everyoneism." And they look at me, "What is that?" I said, "I just feel I can do business with everyone, right?" And I gotta pull the reins back on myself and realize that we don't have to do business with everyone. We don't, to be successful doing what we're doing. I don't need to sell 1 million widgets. We're not bound by one product. We're not bound by one community. We have, in my eyes, this just great opportunity to, be a little flexible with as the winds of industry change, that we're not going to get taken down by the fact that I have to sell quarter page ads in the print edition of the paper, or it doesn't matter what else I'm doing. This is going down.
Where do you get enjoyment from your day-to-day working at Road 55?
My perfect balance is 1 foot in the creative canoe and 1 foot in the business canoe. And I feel I'm in my right space here, that every day through our own means, through our clients, we have the opportunity to not just get creative and blue sky, but to actually produce it and put it out there, and we can go at our speed, and we're not stuck in the corporate machine of, well, we'll see what the VP of this has to say about it. We want to go, we go. And I know that has its pros and its cons too, but it's very fulfilling work.
Okay, so I guess this is my last question, and I'm going to try and tap some of the wisdom that you've acquired over the years in newspaper and other industries. What lessons did you learn through that transition to something different that might be applicable in helping others adjust to a similar situation and figure out their next steps?
I think not getting too buried within your role or your industry when it comes to like on the networking side of things, I think many treat their role as, I'll only do whatever activities serve my job and my role, and I'm not going to do anything outside of that. And as I've said, I went through many turns in my career where it didn't matter what I did, it was Rob the person across the table from that relationship. And it was those relationships that really helped me through so many different changes of my career. So, the best time to plant a tree is 10 years ago. The second best time is today. So it's never too late. What I was saying earlier too about that, when change does happen, and it will, whether it's an industry, rapid change or changes within your company, you're going to be okay on the other end. That you just gotta roll with it. But the more you can do to plant some seeds along the way, I think you can soften the blow quite a lot. And if you've not planted some of those opportunities outside of the walls of whatever it is you're doing or your company you have, when that change does happen, it typically the fall's a lot harder.
Thanks again, Rob, for sharing your perspective.
Well, Brian, I appreciate this, that when I talk about the networking side, Nate is a big part of my ongoing networking and mentorship and staying connected to the school that I attended. And, you can't be everywhere, so pick your avenues. And Nate has been a great part of that. And I love giving back where I can, and I can honestly say that Nate is still giving to me today.
Thanks again to Rob Lollisher of Road 55 for joining me today, and thanks Tracy Niven for designing the episode artwork. In the episode show notes, you'll find related techlifetoday.ca stories, including a feature on a pair of NAIT grads who left good-paying jobs in the financial world to follow their passion and open a craft brewery in Edmonton called the Growlery. We also have a feature about a NAIT grad who suffered an injury at work and was forced to leave a 15-year career in plumbing and gas fitting and return to NAIT for a career in human resources. If you liked what you heard, don't forget to hit the like button. See you again next time on Career Essentials.